Good evening. The Orion spacecraft makes a crucial move to the moon next year, and guess how far it went? China celebrated the 600th launch of its Long March rocket. A company called High Impulse in the EU raked in 45 million euros for its hybrid-propelled orbital launch vehicle. A company called Space Quarters got 5 million for a robotic space construction. Atomic 6 unveils a space armor tiles to shield spacecraft and its inhabitants from high-speed debris. 3i Atlas turns out to be mostly nickel, and it's worth what again? VAST plans their first commercial space launch next year, and we have the inside track at NASA's OCS shutdown. All this with our incredible guest coming up, Stephen Fleming. From the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. Yeah, before I continue on, I just wanted to let you know, as many of you, as many millions of companies out there understand, we've had some outage issues with AWS and our hosting servers. So if something happens, we get cut out, please bear with us because we're trying to get through that as best we can, as well as, everyone else in the world. So just to say that. Now, what is the Center? The Center for Space Commerce is the folks who host this show. And what do? We champion and strengthen emerging space startups and space-adjacent enterprises worldwide through advisory, access, and advocacy. Our pitch events and world-class boot camps fortify startups to be better investor-ready. Now, a lot of our work, especially this podcast, is supported by our listeners and fans like you. So if you just go to cscf.space/support and click that plain as day donate button, well, a little in the tip jar each month makes a big difference. And now my oldest space friend, Michael Lane, is with us. He is back from carving a totem pole. It's very long and very skinny, and it goes really, really high. Michael, join us, please.
Hey,
how's things? Just when you think I can't come up with another off the wall religious reference, I do it again.
No, that's good. That's good. I like that. Thanks.
I got a million of them.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's super fun. I was describing to somebody the other day how I was a cult leader, and I needed to kind of explain that a little bit, and it makes me smile. It makes me laugh. So it's good. It's good.
Well, I wouldn't do it if you took it personally, but it's
we've
known each other way too long for that.
There's that's the thing, is that I'm not the only cult leader in the sector, right? I mean,
right.
There's Bob Zubrin, there's Rick Tomlinson. I mean, there's some cult of personalities in this field.
Absolutely.
And you kind of need to be, right? If you are going to
sometime
push forward on an outlandish idea, and we're going to talk about some outlandish ideas this evening.
Love it.
If you're going to push forward that, you have to have the conviction to move forward with your idea. Otherwise, you're not going to accomplish it. So,
yeah,
there's some cool guys, and you're one of them, right? Like take a bow. You've pushed your own crazy ideas at times.
Well, but I'm not a cult leader. I'm more like the Oracle of Delphi. It's or Cassandra. More like Cassandra, I think. It's like, yeah, I know what's going to happen, and no one will listen to me.
No one will listen. One of the reasons why this show is called The Unknown Quantity, right?
That's exactly right.
We know it's happening. All right.
Yep.
Let's jump into, by the way, Jason's posted.
Jason's here.
Yeah,
making his own totem jokes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the way, you totally missed our show on Thursday. So it was a good show. So I hope you caught it on the podcast. Aiden, always nice to see you. Thanks. And then, of course, Morty, which I still owe a phone call to, and I promise I will get to it. I promise.
Bad Michael.
When,
Bad,
but, that,
bad Michael.
yeah, exactly.
Shame.
All right.
Shame.
I just want to know one thing. You can
Yeah.
just say yes or no. Did you have some good news or not so good news on Friday?
Hold on, guys.
TBD?
I am having that problem again with my sound. Let me
Okay.
get back to you. I'll be back in
Okay.
a tick.
All right.
All right.
I'm going to jump into the
Start the
news.
news.
I'm going to jump into the news. All righty.
I can't hear a thing. That's the problem.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take the news. I love live programming. A long time ago, we made the decision that we could do this live or Memorex. If any of you, half of our audience is not old enough to know that joke. But yeah, we're gonna do it live. We learn it live, and it's fun. All right. Let us jump into some of the news. Talk about cult leaders here. Have you heard that there's a new comet out in the world? Out in the solar system. It is an interstellar comet, which has gotten a lot of attention. It's only the third one that we've identified. It is pretty interesting, and if you read anything on the net about it, there's some strange anomalies. Whatever you were doing,
Is it working? Does it sound better?
No. I could hear you perfectly, and so could Jason. But what you're doing now, it's just non-stop background. Yep, that's better.
Yep.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I'm just going on my
Okay.
other computer. This thing is.
Okay, we can hear you, so I'm just going to keep going with the news. You sound fine on my end.
Okay. There's this whine in the background, and I'm trying to figure out why that is.
Okay, we do not hear that. So
Well, that's
this comet is really peculiar, right? There's a lot of interest if you want to look into something that's not hyperbole and not kind of crazy on TikTok. There's a lot of folks making a lot of money on hype around this thing. So I would ignore most of the stuff you see on YouTube and TikTok. But there's Professor Avi Loeb out of Harvard that has some pretty interesting takes on it. We would not normally talk about that kind of stuff on this show,
right.
but when somebody does a calculation that says it's 100 times bigger than JP Morgan, right? $455 trillion worth of nickel, because it's many kilometers long and many kilometers wide, and it's a lot of nickel. So I just find that pretty fun and pretty entertaining to kind of imagine. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. If you're interested in this thing, there's a lot that can be said about it. By the way, JP Morgan just came up with a report just a few hours ago that says that America only mines 1% of global nickel. So let's see what we can do about capturing this thing and redirecting it. So
here's the
we're not really doing that.
Here's the funny part. We already have an asteroid way out there. It's worth 10,000 times more than that, and it's called 16 Psyche, and NASA has launched a probe toward it. But that's like the core of an exploded or something, which has always been the theory behind the asteroid belt to begin with. And so the mother lode had to be somewhere, and it looks like we may have found that. I don't know what you do with that, but there it is. This thing is you can't slow this down. This thing is going through our solar system from someplace else, and it's way too fast.
Way too fast, way too big. So no, I'm not really talking about capturing it, but that does solve some of our metals problems.
Yeah,
if
one anyway. We got a whole lot more
one
to worry
anyway,
about.
yeah.
But yeah. So I want to go back to the beginning of the list. I led off with the Orion spacecraft making a crucial move towards its 2026 launch to the moon. Interestingly, that move was 7 miles.
7 miles.
Yep. Great. Years will it take for it to get to the moon? It only goes 7 miles every, year, or I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take. But I just like how they said it was the name of the article that tickled my funny bone. It makes a crucial move on its way to the moon. No, you came out of the vehicle assembly building and you went over here somewhere.
Yeah.
No.
That's ridiculous, right?
Stop it. Stop that. People will be more responsible.
Only 200,000 kilometers more to go, but 7 miles of Summers. That's a start. I mixed that all up. 260,000 miles and 7 miles. So, yay, Orion. I still want to see Orion fly. I do.
Well, we have to see Orion fly. It better freaking fly because, I mean, the last time I saw an estimate of the money being spent to develop it, just the capsule, was $8 billion. Right. It's probably closer to 10 or 12 now.
They're ridiculous.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's insane what they did. Is it really, 10 or 12 times a better capsule than Crew Dragon?
Don't know.
And what metrics do you measure that?
Yeah, right. Well, I think the first metric is don't get stuck, and the second metric is keep them alive. So,
those are vaguely important. Absolutely,
they're pretty important. Yeah, and so far it's 1 out of 2. It kept them alive, but then it got
So. This light's just wrong, but now see here I could put a ring light, and I probably should. So I noticed China marked a new milestone. They just launched their 600th Long March rocket recently, and that's the oldest in their fleet. It's been around since that was their first one ever, that they built, and they're still flying it. Now, I thought about that. I thought, well, how many Falcon 9s has Elon launched?
My first question,
in a lot less time,
right?
A fraction of the time. It's probably close to 500 as well. So,
I actually think I know how to get that answer.
Well, they're doing 100 launches. They're doing over 100 launches a year now. It's just in the last 2 years.
Right.
It's 200. Right. We could probably figure that out if it was really important. I just thought it was an interesting milestone. Well, okay, fine. Now,
and then same questions for the Soyuz, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would
almost 50 years.
For a long time. That was the one to beat. So. I'm gonna see if I can get the answer to that question.
Okay.
All right. What else we got?
So
that's 600.
Yeah, there's this company called High Impulse. I never heard of them before. They're in Germany, I believe, and they just nailed down a 45 million euros. And they're having an orbital rocket program that they're accelerating. And so, intersection of space and money, we should talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know these guys. We've said this several times. There's a whole raft of technologies. We've talked a lot about the sovereignty. We talked a lot about nationalism. We talked a lot about Germany in the last few weeks. So this feels like it's the beginning of fielding that money that we talked about a couple weeks ago from Germany.
Yeah. I'm rebuilding everything on this other computer. I have all these links, and they were all on the other one.
Oh, right.
You know, there we go. So they had a so they had a 15 million euro Series A equity round, and that was led by Campus Founders Ventures. And then it got an additional 30 million in, ready for it, public financing.
Yep.
We don't really do that the same. Well, we do it, but we don't do it the same way. We actually, we give them contracts.
Yeah, but they just announced that $40 billion for 5 years
Yes.
fund. That's I think that's what they're talking about, public finance money.
Yeah, it could be. That could be. But High Impulse has been around since 2018, and this and they've so far, including the current closure, they've raised about 74 million total.
Yeah, that's cool.
Let's see. Cool. Actually, it says right here. So, Campus Founders Ventures led the equity round, joined by Atlantic, GIMIC, Global Resilience Innovation Fund, something in German I can't pronounce, Startup BW Innovation Funds, and another thing in German I can't pronounce. I don't know if that new 41 billion has anything to do with any of those smaller groups, but
no.
But they're definitely going in the right direction, because one of the guys there, co-founder, said that Europe does not have its own access to space, and they're going to accelerate the commercialization of their orbital rockets. So everybody's on the move to become more competitive and independent.
Awesome. Love it. By the way, I just punched that question into Dr. Internet, and it says the Soyuz family is between 1900 and 2000, but it goes all the way back to 1966.
Yeah,
their recent cadence is 15 or 20. Long March is 600 since 1970, and their recent cadence is about 50. And then Falcon only 400 since 2010. So, and their cadence is over 100. So, yeah, it's not going to take very much. 2 more years to beat China.
Probably.
Might take a while to beat the Soviets. So
another 10 years total. Maybe.
Yeah. But that's cool, right? That's our history. That's a lot of launches. I mean, seriously, hats off to the Soviets and the Chinese. Yeah. All right, what else we got?
Okay, Atomic 6.
Oh, right, armor. I'm a big fan of space armor, right? In my early days working on the Earth space elevator, there was a lot of questions about how many hits can we take? Can we protect? There's one particular region that had a lot of potential impacts in that, 300, 400 kilometer, 500 kilometer zone, that 200 kilometer zone up there had a lot of orbital debris. Now, I have lost track of that. I don't know if those are still the high impact sites. But there was talk about, can we build a protectant on the ribbon for those places? And the answer was probably no back then. This makes me wonder if maybe the answer is now yes. So I think that's really cool from a very practical perspective. And what is this stuff made out of?
Carbon. Advanced composites.
Right? Carbon.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's pretty neat. Successfully halted projectiles exceeding 7 kilometers per second without generating harmful fragments. I don't know how they did that, but that is badass. That is super cool. So,
and it stops debris up to 3 millimeters in diameter. It doesn't sound like much,
but
when it's going at orbital speed,
Right.
and that's 90% of all low Earth orbit debris. And
Mm-hmm.
then their max armor will withstand impacts up to 12.5 millimeters.
Bonkers. That
That's
is
huge.
absolutely bonkers. Yeah. Um, I didn't see in here where these folks were. I thought they were probably worth looking up and then kind of maybe not today, but maybe someday in the future having a conversation with them. I thought
Yeah,
these
yeah.
were really interesting folks. Yeah. So, yeah, that's pretty neat. Good stuff. Necessary. Very necessary.
Absolutely. The other one, there's this company called Space Quarters. I don't know where they are either. They just got 5 million to do robotic space construction, which is I'm a big fan of.
Right.
And they collaborated with organizations including Sky Perfect, JSAT, JAXA, interestingly, Obayashi Corp, IHI Aerospace. They're out of Tohoku University, so this must be Japan. They got some funding from Global Brains, Tokyo Construction, X-Tech Vexor, Mitsubishi, UFJ Capital, etc. So
we can send Morty over there. He's on his way over there in a couple days. I guess about 2 weeks. He's got a good relationship with Obayashi, and so Morty, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to come back and report back what they're doing, because we want to see robotic and electron beam welding systems for constructing large-scale infrastructure in orbit and on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
That's music to our ears. I want to know, just the same question that we just had a moment ago, is this part of Japan's $8 billion investment into space tech? Again, we don't have any way of knowing that. There's not information from this article, and we don't know the boots on the ground. So want to know where that's coming from. So Morty, get on it, buddy. Thank you.
You have an assignment.
You have an assignment.
And of course, Vast all just announced again they want to launch their first commercial LEO space station next year. New Haven, and they want to launch next year. I don't know when.
The speed of this is boggling to me.
Well, it's amazing what, when you start out with a seed fund of about $500 million,
right,
from a Bitcoin billionaire,
Bitcoin guy, yep.
And he's happy to spend it. So,
did you say you did a tour of this at? Was it IAC or was it at?
I think it was in
Space Foundation.
Yeah,
Space Foundation in March or whatever that was.
Yeah, they did it. They offered tours. I got some pics. Yeah,
nice.
Right.
Yeah, when you start with $500 million and then go from there, you can happening fast. To contrast that, my local folks here up in just north of Seattle, they've actually dropped staff. They've cut about 2/3 of their staff. So it is hard to be in the space station business these days.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of confidence in these guys, and reminding our listeners, this is Colin Doohan, who went through our boot camp in Austin as a competitor in the business plan competitions. I believe it was 2017 or 18.
Okay.
Smart guys, that team. But it is hard to be in the space station business. They have a pretty big contract with Space Force, so nobody's cutting them loose anytime soon. But yeah, Vast. I can't believe how fast they're moving. Really well done, y'all.
Right.
All right. We have one more article. Is that right?
Yep. The only thing we have left, it was just kind of some guys insider's look.
Yeah.
This is brought to you by the science editor of the Planetary Society. It's on their website. They were talking about the chief scientist's office.
Yeah.
And how that worked out. And it's just it's basically, they said promoted on Sunday, fired on Monday. It's like, so he finally got his gig to run this team, and he had to sit down in front of them and saying, well, we're being shut down.
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. We're all losing our jobs.
I love the chief scientist's job. I've got a big affinity for that role, both at Space Force and at NASA. And somewhere in here, there's a quote here that I really like. Having no money is what gave us our power. The office of the chief scientist was hardly an example of bloated bureaucracy. According to Draper, its operating costs were about 0.001% of NASA's budget, a whopping $349,000 per year, $350,000 for the whole of the organization.
Well, that's got to go.
Right. I mean, that is so much more efficient to cut their $350,000 than, say Gateway or SLS.
Yeah. Right. But they saved, the Congress saved that. They did take that away.
Yeah.
But then Congress put it back.
Yep. The one thing I could have agreed on with Congress these days, and they went and put it back anyway. Yeah. So this is just part of that whole 4,000 people at NASA being cut, senior people. Yeah, it's going to be tough. I really am worried about the NASA that we've all come to know and love. I'm curious.
It's going to become unrecognizable soon if they keep doing this stuff.
Yeah,
and even Draper himself, he didn't expect it, but he put in for early retirement just in case. And guess what? OCS was dissolved, and he was allowed to retire.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that talent. It's just why.
I hope that talent is able to make its way into our industry, but I fear that it's not. Maybe the young folks are, but
if you're past 50.
Well, you have to be a Blue or a SpaceX if you're going to pull in the Jim Greens and the Gerstenmeyers of the world, right? Because they are worth a pretty penny, and small companies can't afford to pick them up.
Right.
So, I don't know what you do. I would love to see some of this talent move its way into our entrepreneurial ecosystem, but I don't know if it can or not. So, I certainly couldn't afford somebody like this. I would put the whole team on my payroll if I could, but I can't. Right? But I can't.
Right.
All right, that is
now
our news. Let's bring on our guest.
Oh, absolutely. We're not just going into space history, but also I think some bold forays in the space future. I've been hearing about this guy since 1999. I think I met him finally in the early 2000s. He's become a long time, a friend and advisor for a lot of different things. He was an early advisor to Colony Fund when we were trying to do that. And he's been invested in a couple of space companies himself. He was a VC. Then he worked for his alma mater at Georgia Tech, helping do tech transfer into the private sector from a lot of stuff that's being developed there. He did that for many years. And he's still a successful senior executive with leadership experience in startups, multinationals, private equity, and university-based economic development, a thought leader for open innovation and entrepreneurship. Stephen Fleming.
Hey, Tom, somebody's been reading my LinkedIn profile again, I can tell.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah, good to join you guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I guess we just start with kind of your origin story. You've been around for a long time, and you've been involved in a lot of different
Yeah,
things.
the beard didn't used to be so gray when I started doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Neither did mine,
Neither
neither
were any
did
of us.
Tom.
yeah. So no, this really started for me in the believe it or not in the '80s on a predecessor to the internet called Bix, which was run by Byte Magazine. And Jerry Purnell, who some of you may have known.
Yeah,
Jerry Purnell was very active on Bix. Jerry was one of the first very very loud in multiple ways. Jerry had a loud voice.
Oh yeah.
Very loud proponents of private space development. Got me hooked on that topic in the late '80s. I started going to conferences where Jerry was mentioning that these people were working on real stuff. So I did that. And was in the late '90s. I was in the venture capital business by then, and ran into a team that was building what looked like an interesting spacecraft design. And I took it to my venture capital partnership and said, "Hey, I think this is really cool. We could invest in a spacecraft." And my partners looked at me like I'd just grown a second head out of my shoulder and said, "You're talking about what?" Remember what the world was like you guys were there in
yeah,
1999. Nobody was
yeah,
doing this stuff. Elon was still doing PayPal, if you even had PayPal yet.
yeah.
Um, so doing entrepreneurial space was just completely nuts. So my partnership said, "You're not using, the partnership money for this." And I said, "Okay, well, I've fulfilled my obligation now. I brought it to the partners, and any objection if I spend my own money?" And they said, "It's your money.
Go
You do what
nuts.
you want." So I wrote a check, and then I wrote another check, and I wrote some more checks. I wrote a bunch of checks to SpaceX. Excuse me, to XCore, not to SpaceX. I would be living on a private island for SpaceX.
Right, yeah.
A bunch of checks to XCore. Invested in about half a dozen other space-related startups. Back then, it was all launch companies
Yeah.
that I was invested in. I did
Right.
got a little piece of NanoRacks, which was fun, and a little piece of what's now forget the new name. The company I was invested in is called Ansible. We sold them. So I've had a little return on some of them. Some of them I'm still 15 years later waiting on a return. But I'm involved in the private space investment business for just about as long as anybody at this point,
Yeah.
and have met a bunch of players, and sat on a panel with Elon, and should have asked him for a job, but oh well, didn't do that. It's been a fun ride. It's fun to watch that you can have a podcast like this now talking about companies that could not have existed 25, 26 years ago. Just
No way.
the ecosystem
Yeah.
wasn't there yet. And so I've been a little small part of that, and that's been fun. So I'm enjoying that. So
Yeah.
it's good.
I know one of the things I remember from way back when, right about 2000, I think it was 2004, the administration at that time was trying to do another push. They called it Moon, Mars, and Beyond. And
Yeah.
they wanted to basically do shuttle derived type material to build a new moon rocket and all that stuff. That was a long time ago. I
Yeah.
remember they were doing a road show, and they have panel discussions and stuff, in various U.S. cities. And in New York that year, you were on one of those panels.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you. And you let off. It says, the four most dangerous words in the English language are "it's different this time."
It's different this time. Yes. I still use that line. And it's still true.
Nothing
It's
has
still true.
changed.
I mean, we're still launching those rockets. I mean,
I know.
SLS is Ares 5. So, yeah, I testified in front of that committee. I testified in front of either the Augustine committee or the Aldrich. There's been a lot.
They blurred together.
The messages that we have been promulgating for the last 20 odd years, they're not complex and they're not new. Um, they do interfere with some very entrenched interests that have made billions of dollars on cost plus government contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we had a different way of doing it, um, a lot of us were small enough to be squashed. And then
Yep.
Elon came along, and he was too big to get squashed,
Mhm.
and so he's been able to do it where the rest of us couldn't. So look, politically, people have issues with Elon. I get it, but from the space perspective, this country would be screwed, blued, and tattooed if
Yep.
Elon had not put his personal wealth and personal reputation at risk
But he also
building
knew how
pushing
to
on
work the
SpaceX.
system. And the system rose up to meet him at about the same time with the establishment of COTS.
Well, and with COTS, I think the system was, and with people like Laurie in office and so forth, people were looking and saying, maybe we can give a little bit of money to these mammals that are eating our reptile eggs, and so he was there at the right time. He was there at the right time, but
right time.
Yeah.
And people risk their political careers to push things like COTS missions because that was only a small sliver of a fraction.
A sliver.
Yeah. So you were there at the earliest stages. Could you have imagined in 2001? Could you have imagined? Space Capital just released their report. $5.3 billion in the last 90 days put into this sector.
Yeah. Yes, I could, and I did, because it was obvious to anybody who was really paying attention that this was going to be a $1 trillion industry. And I've said for 20 years that the world's first trillionaire would be made in space. Well, it looks like Elon's going to be that guy. Right. But the second and the third and the fourth trillionaires are probably going to be made in space as well. So yes, there's an enormous appetite for capital among these companies. There's an enormous demand for risk capital, for individuals, for talent. We need everything to. It's like Henry Ford building the automobile business. I mean, it'll consume all the capital there is. But the payback's going to be enormous, so yeah, it was always a matter of time. We could have been doing this in 1978. We could have been doing this in 1988. We could have been doing this in 1998. It turned out we're not doing it until the 2018, 2020s. So we're one of the slides that I use in my presentations is a picture of Charlton Heston. We're walking through the desert. And the Ten Commandments, and I'm saying, even Moses only had to wander in circles for 40 years, and every year I increment my chart, and right now we're at 53 years since we've gone anywhere except going in circles around the Earth.
Right.
And it looks like we're going to get to the moon next year, at least around the moon again. We'll land on the moon in a few years. We'll land on Mars in a few years. But oh my God, my generation. I'm 63 years old. My generation got screwed. I mean, the stuff that we should have been doing, we got to sit on the sidelines.
Yep.
And now I'm hoping that the kids who are coming up these days are going to get a chance to do the stuff that we dreamt of. Yeah.
I've written about that a lot. It's like a whole promise of an entire generation was lost. It should have been focused on space. We were the children of Apollo, who later became the orphans of Apollo.
Right. Orphans of Apollo. That's us.
And what basically happened, we focused inward.
I want to make sure
we went to the tech sector.
I want to make sure
we had today if we'd actually gone to Mars when we were supposed to.
Right. Absolutely. I want to make sure that our audience understands the reference that us three graybeards take for granted. But Orphans of Apollo is a very worthwhile movie, worth watching.
Yes.
It was an interesting segment in our history that has been, by and large, ignored or forgotten, or some people just never knew of that at all. But it was kind of core to the three of us. Like, we know that story. We know the people. We know what happened then. And it's for the folks that are not, in their end of their 50s, early 60s, middle 70s, it's a story worth knowing. So go check out Orphans of Apollo as just one story, but it also informs where we're coming from.
Right.
It was the commercial development and contractual takeover of the Soviet space station
Mir, right.
And no one knows about that, but that's where the Orphans of Apollo phrase comes from, and we all feel it. Like, we feel it.
It's an emotional thing, and I've told people I've invested in now over a dozen space startups. I helped put together Space Angels Network. I now run the Arizona Space Business Roundtable, and I tell people some of these decisions that I'm making there's an emotional component to them. I mean,
Right.
I could have just bought more Nvidia stock, but
Right.
this needs to be done. This needs to be done, and I'm glad that I'm at the tail end of being able to help with it a little bit, because we waited a long time for
Mhm.
this moment to happen.
Yeah. 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 So talk about the Arizona ecosystem, because I don't know anything about it. I suspect most
Well,
people
that's why I
don't.
moved. I was at Georgia Tech. I love Georgia Tech. I'm from Atlanta, and I bleed white and gold. By the way, Georgia Tech is 7-0 in football right now, for the first time since 1966. I got to point that out. Uh, so just got to mention that. But I came out here to University of Arizona because there is a very active space community dating back, really, to the NACA days, which it was the predecessor to NASA in the late 50s. There's been an active space ecosystem here, helping to map the moon for the Apollo missions, and doing spy satellites back when they couldn't talk about them, stuff like that. And so when I had the opportunity to move out here, I started meeting a lot of really interesting startup companies. Now, some of them came out of NASA missions. The most recent, of course, OSIRIS-REx went out and got a chunk of asteroid and brought it back. That was managed, mission control for that was on this campus. The Phoenix lander, Mars lander, the one that went to the ice caps, that was managed from this campus.
Cool.
NEO Surveyor is where the science lead. That's going to find all the Earth-crossing asteroids here in a couple of years. So there's a long history of NASA activity, but there's private activity in Arizona going back to Biosphere 2. And
Yeah.
Biosphere 2 is sometimes kind of a punchline, but I mean they did and are still to this day doing some amazing science on the life support necessary
Really, truly.
for lunar colonies, Martian colonies, orbital habitats, whatever. And while we're going through the news, I just went through a list here of so Paragon actually, as a company, is 30 years old. It was spun out of Biosphere 2.
Love
But
Paragon.
you look at companies that are here, and I'm just going to read them. They're not even alphabetized. Lunasonde, Phantom, Freefall, Paramium, Rosatics, Worldview, Black Star Orbital, Electric Sky. We just sold Geos to Rocket Lab, so Rocket Lab's going to have an operation here in Tucson. A little further afield, up in the Phoenix area, Kinetics just got sold to Intuitive Machines, so they've got a bunch of people in Phoenix area now. Virgin Galactic, Catalyst, and then I always have to finish by mentioning Raytheon, which the chief engineer of Raytheon says, we put more stuff in space than anybody else that just doesn't stay there very long. But the SM-3,
Right.
the SM-3 is a ballistic. It goes past the von Karman line. It's a space vehicle.
Yeah.
So there is an awful lot of activity in Arizona, building hardware and software, going into space. And one of the things that I discovered when I got here in Tucson is that a lot of these were siloed, because frequently they're on separate contracts and separate
Mhm.
agencies and what have you. And they weren't cross-fertilizing nearly as much as I thought they should. And so a great thing about being a public research university, especially a tier one public research university, is you can invite people to show up and they'll show up.
Yeah,
And so I
sure.
started holding events saying, come, let's talk to each other. And we just hit 8 years in September. For
Right.
8 years, every month. Now COVID, we had to do it virtually, of course,
Right.
but except for COVID, every month we've gotten a room full of people together, either here or in Tempe at ASU or up at Flagstaff, and talked about the business of space. And as I say, there's an infinite number of places in this state where you can talk about the science of
Right.
space. There wasn't anybody talking about the business of space, and that's what I've been trying to do. We've made some deals happen. We've seen some investments happen. We've seen people get jobs. We're lubricating the gears in the ecosystem. So it's working. It's working.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know Electric Sky, certainly. I know a few of those companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of those companies, more people are going to hear of some of these companies soon. So yeah, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's back up a step, because you spent a lot of time at Georgia Tech basically commercializing stuff that's being developed at the
Right.
academic level.
Right.
How was that experience? What'd you end up doing?
Oh, well, we had a great time. Had an organization which went everywhere from, undergraduates up through, tenured professors, looking at doing startups. And I'd been coming out of the venture capital world, so I knew a little about startups. I usually would tell the entrepreneurs, I don't know the right answer to your question, but I certainly know a whole bunch of wrong answers. And if I can help you avoid the wrong answers, that's worth something. Um, Wound up building the largest university incubator in the country,
Oh,
really in the world if you do legit
yeah,
ones, because China does weird stuff.
right.
But we helped put together a National Science Foundation program called I-Corps for the Innovation Corps, which helps
Mhm.
professors and graduate students all around the country now raise venture capital for their startups. So we helped create that program, and several of our companies went through that. Um, we had some great companies launched out of our commercialization program. One of them that was launched in my conference room is now a unicorn. It's worth over $1 billion. That's called Pindrop Security Systems. Um, Overall, the last time I paid attention, which admittedly was 8 years ago, because I moved out here 8 years ago, 9 years ago now. We had created 10,000 jobs and millions of dollars in tax revenues from those jobs. And as a public institution, I used to say I only got to meet with the governor a couple times a year, and I could only get his attention on two numbers, and one of them was job creation, and the other didn't matter. So job creation was really really what the governor wants to hear about, and we were creating jobs left, right, and center. The entrepreneurial community in Atlanta is enormously healthy.
Yeah,
It's doing very very well,
yeah,
and even though it's not all, it's not under the aegis of Georgia Tech, all of it traces back to Georgia Tech in some sense. There's a Georgia Tech connection to just about every major startup company in Atlanta, and there's like 8 unicorns in Atlanta now. They all have a Georgia Tech relationship. There's Mailchimp sold to Intuit for over $1 billion. They run our campus. I mean, it was a great program. It still is. I'm still in touch with those folks. We still have a place in Atlanta. I'm still friends with them, and no, I'm really proud of the time I spent there. And we're trying to do some of the same things here in Arizona. Uh, I used to say one of the reasons that we were so successful with tech transfer at Georgia Tech is that we and MIT were the only real tier one research universities that did not have med schools. And so we could build, stuff that if you drop it on your toe, it hurts. I mean, we built real stuff.
right.
Um, and so for my sins, I came out here to University of Arizona, which has two med schools. Uh, so a lot of the tech transfer activity at University of Arizona is biotech, is medically related, which is not
Yeah.
my field at all. I,
Right.
I, I can't add any value there. But there's enough in electrical engineering, in physics, and optics. We have an enormously successful optics program going back to the 60s. There's enough stuff where I can add some value that we've been having fun here as well.
Okay. I was going to bring up this because you're working with a lot of the private companies out there, and you've got a business roundtable, you say, going on, and so I sense that you're helping develop a pretty good sense of community amongst the entrepreneurial community out there.
Mhm.
It's something I ask about this because it's something that's sadly lacking here in Florida. And Colorado seems to do a good job. Texas seems to do a good job. Uh, and now, according to you, Arizona is also doing a great job. What's the
We're,
common denominator
Yeah,
behind?
we're doing better. You mentioned Florida. There was a period there back when I was a working VC, so it had to be 25 years ago now, where the president of the Florida Venture Capital Association lived in Atlanta
Okay.
because
Oh,
there were like six different technology centers in Florida. There was obviously Gainesville with the university. There was the
Hmm.
Space Coast. There was Fort Lauderdale, Miami. There's what's happening out in Tampa, St. Pete. There were all these little centers, and they hated each other.
yeah.
And so, and they wouldn't cooperate. And so, like, the folks in Miami wouldn't vote for somebody from Melbourne, and the folks in Melbourne wouldn't vote for somebody, from Gainesville. But they could all agree that, oh, the guy from Atlanta, he's okay, he's cool.
He's
Um,
okay.
so yeah, that sort of fragmentation is dangerous. These communities, proto communities, are not big enough that you can afford to have that sort of fragmentation. And so, luckily here in Arizona, yes, we fight each other on the football field. Once a year we have the rivalry, and people, make, all sorts of jokes about Arizona State and University of Arizona. But other than sporting activities, we actually do work really well together, and we do a lot of cooperation together. And the companies that have spun out are getting talent because we don't graduate enough engineers and scientists from both universities combined to handle the demand. Raytheon, for example,
Wow.
uh, Ra- Raytheon has open recs right now for 2,000 engineers in Tucson. And when they fill those, their projection is they will have open recs for 1,000 new positions every year forever.
Yep. Seattle's in the same
Jesus.
boat. It's not
And they
one.
pay you really, yeah, they pay you really well. They're good jobs, they're good wages. And if you're a startup, you're trying to get talent, and it's like, well, yeah, but Raytheon's going to give me X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So yeah, there's simply not enough room to be fragmented. We really have to pull together, and I'd say Arizona's done a pretty good job of that so far.
We've only got about 7 minutes here.
Okay.
I don't want to miss the conversation about Interstellar. We only
Yeah.
touched on that just
Yeah,
for a
I
moment.
just got back from that. So I've for several years now, I've been on the board of the Interstellar Research Group. I'm actually the guy who renamed it because it was the Tennessee Valley Interstellar Workshop. And when we brought it out here to Tucson, my boss said, I'm going to be damned if I'm going to sponsor something called the Tennessee Valley Interstellar Workshop in Arizona. So we renamed it Interstellar Research Group. We've been in Wichita, we've been in Tucson, we've been in Montreal, and just last week we were in Austin, Texas. We're going to be in Atlanta in 2027. I just got to announce that on Wednesday.
Cool.
This is every 2 years in the U.S. We do the odd numbered years in the U.S., even numbered years are in Europe or elsewhere. Um, but we get together the people who are serious about building interstellar technology. And yes, it's early. I mean, God knows it's early. I'm not going to get to go. My kid's not going to get to go. My grandkid probably doesn't get to go. Maybe her kids get to go. Um, but somebody has to start building this stuff. And what we're learning is that if you actually go back to fundamental principles, there are propulsion methodologies which are not just building rockets and not just wishing we had antimatter, which actually could build outer planet missions, Kuiper Belt missions, Oort cloud missions, and eventually interstellar missions, using non-obvious and non-standard means of propulsion. It's not the ones it's not warp drive. It's not new physics. It's using existing physics. And basically what it is you either are using the interstellar medium itself as a source of propulsive energy, or you preload, you put a railroad track of pellets out there that your spaceship eats, and you propel it that way. But you're not trying to take everything with you on the same voyage. And yes, that looks really promising. And so, one of the things we're talking about is, what would it take to put an orbiter around Neptune? Not a flyby like the New Horizons, where you get 15 minutes of pictures, then
And,
you're gone.
and what was your time horizon for that?
We think you could probably put an orbiter around Neptune in about a year from launch. Um, so these are electromagnetic propulsion systems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, the challenge is you can't test them in low Earth orbit. You got to be outside the Van Allen belts where you flip the switch. So
Okay.
you need a deep space mission to test them.
Okay.
But that's becoming less unlikely. I mean, look, Falcon 9 can do deep space missions.
Right. I was just
So
gonna say we've got. I know folks here in Seattle that are aiming for Venus missions.
yeah, Venus missions,
Yeah.
and private
And
Mars
tons of
missions, and we can
stuff
talk about
going
them.
to the Lagrange point.
Yeah.
We'd
So
be
so
happy to host your research at
right.
L1.
So we're looking at ways. Obviously, we'd love to get NASA money, but NASA has its issues right now. One of the things we're looking at is these numbers for the prices for these missions are getting to the point where you could see a private foundation actually being able to finance some of these missions. Now they're not going to have an economic return. I mean that's a whole other business, and I can talk my ears off about that if we had time. Um, but this would be scientific missions to the outer planets, to the solar focus. If people don't know, the sun makes an enormous telescope lens at about 550 AU, and you can sit there and you could basically raster scan a planet and pixelize it and be be looking at weather patterns on planets around other stars, exoplanets. There's things you can do in the Kuiper Belt. There's things you can do in the Oort cloud. So these are missions that don't require going interstellar. They don't require ridiculous travel times, but they get the technology working so that we're ready for that, and so that at some point, and the number we've been throwing around is about 50 years after everybody stops giggling, and Michael, you'll recognize that phrase.
I do. That's
Uh,
a Arthur Clarke quote.
50 years after everyone stops giggling, we could probably launch a robotic interstellar mission using existing technology, no warp drives, and you'd get data back in about 30 years. So, if a kid's born today, toward the end of that kid's lifetime, that kid could be seeing data coming back from Alpha Centauri. That's becoming plausible enough that it's worth me spending some of my remaining time on trying to make that happen.
And in our remaining time, give us your 5-year predictions and your 25-year predictions.
5 years is going to be rough. We've got a rough time coming ahead of us. China will get to the moon.
You got 2 minutes.
China will get to the moon, and it's going to upset a lot of people. I don't care if China gets there first. I want us to get there best. I want us to have a sustainable presence on the moon in 5 years. In 25 years, Mars is the most valuable real estate in the solar system. Mars is managing a triangle trade between the asteroid belt, the Earth, and Mars. There are at that point tens of thousands of people living on Mars that are not PhD scientists. They're roughnecks. They look like oil rig workers. We'll see.
Yeah, they'll be drilling for water.
So again,
they'll be drilling for water.
They'll be drilling for water. There's plenty of water. It's just inconveniently located.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right. I don't know. I'll keep talking until you guys cut me off. But so.
We got about a minute or so if you want to wrap up. Somebody have something profound you want to?
I do think we're entering a new phase for space investment. We spent a whole bunch of time investing in launch. I've invested a bunch in launch. Launch is becoming a solved problem. Yes, it's going to get better, more efficient, all that. Yes, it's going to be good, but launch is pretty much, we know what's going to happen there. Now it's about, okay, once you're in low Earth orbit, you're halfway to anywhere. What do we do for the other half? Do we do in situ resource utilization? Do we mine the moon first, or do we mine the asteroids first? Do we try to go get a comet? Or are we trying to mine materials for use in space, or trying to mine platinum group metals to bring back to Earth and make lots of money on? I believe you mine the stuff to use in space. Can you actually build solar power satellites with space resources at a reasonable power, which is competitive with things here on Earth? There are so many opportunities for building things in space that you simply couldn't take that first step because launch was so expensive. Now we're going to be able to do those things. And so this will be the period of the space roughnecks. This will be the period of the blue collar astronauts who are not there for science, who are not there for greater knowledge of expanding the knowledge of humanity. They're going to be there to make money, and they will make a lot of money, and their backers will make a lot of money. And that's what I'm hoping to do.
Okay. And on that, Stephen Fleming, still wild and crazy and doing incredible things after all these years. It's been such a joy to have you. We got to do this again, and not
happy
wait
to do
so long.
We'll pick a topic and do a deep dive.
That would be great.
Yeah,
let's work on that.
Cool.
Okay. Thanks for being with us, and
Thanks,
we'll
guys.
see you again real soon.
All right.
Yep. All right. Our guest Thursday. We have a guest on Thursday. Aaron Osterly returns to the show. He's going to have another rousing discussion of space policy in the wake of the NASA budget woes, and of course the revolving door at the top, it would seem. And he always has a great perspective, and I'm looking forward to talking to him about all those things. At that point, for Michael Wayne and Sean Key, this is Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.